Halo Pak Gugus.
Ya, siap.
Oke, teman-teman ya. Nanti kita akan diskusi dalam bahasa Inggris, tapi kalau yang paham bisa
Ya.
langsung. Perlu terjemahan nggak kira-kira?
Ya, teman-teman yang lain mungkin perlu lah. Ya.
Oh ya, siap, siap. Ya udah nanti kita terjemahkan pelan-pelan lah.
Ini terpaksa di kebun ini, Abang.
Iya, bagus. Oke, Baca Namal.
Hello.
Halo. Good afternoon, Mr. Basil.
Yes. Nice to see you and all of you.
So we have more or less almost 15, I think 15 maybe now, 15 participants. Maybe can be more because the other participant also text me that they would like to join. Maybe later Namal can accept whenever they click the invitation. So have participants from different backgrounds. We have a university student. We also have a survival of the past human rights abuses, Mr. Bejo Untung. He is one of the human rights victims who is still struggling until present, fighting for justice and also advocating impunity, which is the most serious problem which still occurred until today. So I would like to speak in Bahasa first to introduce the topic today to the participant ya. Oke, teman-teman semuanya, kita di sini akan berdiskusi tentang Sustainable Development Goals bersama Pak Basil. Pak Basil ini adalah Direktur Policy dari ASEAN Human Rights Commission atau sebuah lembaga regional hak asasi manusia yang ada di Hong Kong. Beliau adalah aktivis HAM dari Sri Lanka, sudah berkecimpung di bidang hak asasi manusia cukup lama dan peraih award, Livelihood Award di tahun 2014 karena perjuangan beliau memperjuangkan hak asasi manusia khususnya di Asia dan di Sri Lanka. Nah, hari ini kita akan diskusi tentang SDGs, khususnya nomor 16 tentang access to justice, peace, and strong institution atau akses keadilan, perdamaian, dan institusi yang kuat. So, Mr. Basil, I introduce yourself to the participant. I say that you are human rights activist and now in charge as the policy director of the ASEAN Human Rights Commission, and also you also got Livelihood Award, and you have been working for human rights for a long time and influencing many human rights activists in Asia. And Mr. Basil now in charge in ASEAN Human Rights Commission in Hong Kong. So I told them that we will discuss Sustainable Development Goals, especially number 16 regarding peace, access to justice, and also strong institution, which is very relevant to the Indonesian context. So that is the introduction. And we have two speakers today. The first one is Mr. Basil, and then the second one, we would like to invite Mr. Bejo Untung after Mr. Basil present. So I would like to give the time for Mr. Basil 15 to 20 minutes. And every 2 minutes, I will translate for the participant who cannot understand English. So please, Mr. Basil.
Yeah. I'm glad to be with you. Since the time is short, I will get into the topic directly. now I heard that some of you are involved in the fight against impunity.
Saya senang bisa bergabung dengan Anda dan ini waktunya pendek dan saya juga senang Anda sekalian berjuang melawan impunitas atau kekebalan hukum.
Now something that is not well understood, particularly in Asian countries and developing countries, is that the problem of impunity in our countries is very different to that whenever it occurs in developed democracies.
Jadi problem di Asia yang saat ini tidak banyak dipahami adalah impunitas atau kekebalan hukum untuk para penjahat. Hal ini berbeda dengan negara-negara maju.
In a developed country, even in a crisis, the basic legal system exists. And somebody violates that, and then you can rely on the legal system in order to fight back impunity.
Jadi kalau di negara-negara maju, legal sistemnya atau sistem hukumnya berjalan. Jadi kalau ada orang yang melanggar, maka kita bisa mengandalkan sistem hukum untuk menyelesaikannya.
Problem with many of the Asian countries and less developed countries is that one of the causes of impunity is the absence of a properly functioning and credible legal system itself.
Jadi persoalan mendasar dari negara-negara Asia dan juga negara-negara yang kurang berkembang itu adalah sistem hukum dan sistem peradilannya tidak begitu berfungsi.
That is why in our countries we must consciously address that problem if we want to have any real achievements against impunity.
Jadi oleh karenanya kita harus mengadvokasi persoalan ini untuk bisa melawan impunitas.
Now, that is exactly the issue that is raised by the goal number 16 of the Sustainable Development Goals 2020.
Jadi itulah isu yang akan dijawab oleh tujuan pembangunan berkelanjutan nomor 16 yang akan berakhir pada tahun 2030.
In Sustainable Development Goal 16, what it says is that there should be institutions that are capable of ensuring access to justice.
Jadi dalam tujuan pembangunan berkelanjutan nomor 16 harus ada institusi yang kapabel untuk para pencari keadilan yang akan mengakses keadilan.
Now, question that we have to ask is, are the institutions that are in your country particularly relating to administration of justice? That is, the policing system that is supposed to do the investigations, prosecutorial system that is supposed to do the prosecutions, and the judiciary who are supposed to adjudicate independently and competently, are they really capable of doing that?
Jadi pertanyaan yang harus kita tanyakan kepada kita adalah apakah sistem hukum kita, polisi yang melakukan penyidikan, kemudian pengadilan yang mengadili kasus, apakah kapabel untuk melakukan hal-hal seperti itu?
So what we are talking is not about some bad police or bad prosecutors or bad judges not doing their work. That is not the issue we are talking about.
Jadi kita tidak berbicara tentang polisi yang buruk atau hakim yang buruk.
What we are talking about is that the machinery itself, the institutions themselves are so defective that even with good judges or prosecutors, it cannot deliver justice.
Jadi kita berbicara institusinya yang kurang berfungsi dengan baik atau defect, meskipun hakimnya atau aparatusnya baik, tapi tidak akan bisa berfungsi memberikan keadilan.
Now, that is why it is necessary to study whether the system is a competent system. Is it? We are not talking about perfect system. No system is perfect. But is the system developed to a rationally agreeable point? We can say, okay, the institution can deliver justice.
Jadi kita akan berbicara tentang apakah institusi ini bisa berjalan dengan baik atau tidak. Kita tidak bicara tentang sistem yang sempurna atau perfect, karena tidak ada sistem yang sempurna atau perfect di dunia ini.
So, if the institution is not capable of doing that, whatever the amount of work we do, asking for justice is going to end up in the same place. After many years of work, we will find that we don't achieve what we wish to achieve.
Jika institusi itu tidak capable, maka kita tidak akan bisa mencapai apa yang ingin kita capai.
Now, you can compare this with your country, but I will give you example from several countries, particularly my own country, which I know very well because I have worked on that for almost 40 years. I'll give you some example to show when we can say the system is not functioning to an adequate degree.
Saya akan memberikan beberapa contoh khususnya dari negara saya, Sri Lanka, karena saya sudah bekerja kurang lebih 40 tahun untuk negara saya.
Now, for example, I have heard of your country that when a man is arrested, even under the normal, I'm not talking about the anti-terrorism law, but under normal law, the person could be kept in the custody of the police or military without being produced before a judge for about 3 months.
Saya dengar di negara Anda, di Indonesia, ada sistem hukum ya di bawah KUHAP. Jika seseorang ditangkap, maka dia bisa ditahan sebelum diproses hukum, yaitu 3 bulan. Baik itu di tahanan kepolisian, ataupun pada masa lalu di tahanan militer.
Now, the civilized practice which have been established now for several centuries in many countries is that you must produce a person as soon as possible before a magistrate. That is normally within 24 hours, or if there is some particular difficulties in a particular country, in 2 days.
Jadi kalau normalnya seharusnya ketika seseorang ditangkap harus segera dibawa ke magistrat atau majelis hakim tidak kurang dari 24 jam setelah ditangkap atau 2 hari.
Now, the idea behind this is that when a person is arrested, he should be brought to judicial custody away from custody of the executive. The police keeps a person or a military keeps a person, they are keeping on behalf of the executive. So that transfer of the person as soon as possible for a judicial custody is a well-established civilized norm.
Pardon, the last word?
The person should be produced, to the judicial custody, not to keep under the executive. Is a basic civilized norm.
Jadi seseorang atau yang ditangkap atau yang menjadi tersangka itu harus ditahan di judicial custody, itu tahanan di bawah institusi peradilan, bukan ditahan di tempat lain yang di luar institusi peradilan seperti tahanan polisian atau tahanan lain.
Why is that?
Kenapa demikian?
Because the state owes a duty to protect everyone who is arrested And this function is exercised through the judiciary. It is not a
Karena
function for the executive.
Karena negara punya kewajiban untuk melindungi siapapun dan ini adalah fungsi peradilan, bukan fungsi dari eksekutif.
So what we are coming to in terms of the development of institutions is the issue or the protection of anybody who goes before the a court or a police or a prosecutor. Idea
Jadi,
of protection.
isu kita adalah perlindungan terhadap seseorang, ya, dalam konteks development institution atau penguatan institusi untuk orang-orang yang berurusan dengan hukum.
Maybe a difficult problem for you to grasp because people understand ideas in terms of their practical experiences.
But people understand what?
People understand ideas in terms of their practical experiences.
Oh, jadi orang-orang paham idenya karena berbasis pada pengalaman mereka.
For example, when I worked in Cambodia as a United Nations officer,
Contohnya ketika saya bekerja di Kamboja sebagai staf PBB,
that was a time more or less immediately after the Pol Pot's period.
pada saat itu sesaat setelah periodenya Pol Pot berakhir,
and the people, about 1/7 of the population was killed in 4 years.
jadi banyak orang yang dibunuh kurang lebih 4 tahun, 1/7 ya?
1/7.
1/7
1 million out of 7 million.
Oh, 1 to 7 million ya? Between 1 and 7 million.
7
Jadi
million is the entire population. More than 1 million were killed.
Oke, kurang lebih 1 juta orang terbunuh pada masa Pol Pot.
And these people were the educated class.
Dan orang-orang yang menjadi korban tersebut adalah orang-orang terdidik.
So the new generation after Pol Pot could not understand what it means to have a judiciary.
Jadi generasi setelah Pol Pot tidak memahami apa itu sistem peradilan yang baik.
Because they have never seen anything like that.
Karena mereka tidak melihat secara langsung hal-hal tersebut.
So it can happen after a period of Suharto, long period, and then you all have begun your new period. But the systems which were displaced during Suharto's period may not have been restored to an extent that is acceptable to a rational level.
Jadi ini juga serupa dengan keadaan ketika setelah Soeharto, sistem peradilan kita juga memerlukan perbaikan atau reformasi untuk sistem yang lebih baik.
Now this is something that you have to discuss because you know more details about this issue.
Jadi hal ini yang ingin kita diskusikan karena Anda sekalian tahu lebih banyak soal isu ini yang akan kita diskusikan hari ini.
What I'm only trying to point out is that if the institution is bad, if it is not up to a minimum standard of providing protection to the victim or the accused, then you cannot, it cannot deliver justice.
Jadi poin yang ingin saya sampaikan adalah jika institusi peradilan itu jelek, maka tidak bisa memenuhi standar minimum, maka ini tidak akan mungkin bisa memberikan keadilan untuk korban.
To be unable to deliver justice and not delivering justice are two different things.
Tidak bisa memberikan, to be unable to deliver justice.
Unable to deliver justice.
Tidak mampu memberikan keadilan and to be
not
unable
delivering justice
dan tidak memberikan keadilan. Jadi tidak mampu dan tidak memberikan rasa keadilan itu hal yang berbeda.
These are two different things because even a good system can sometimes fail in delivering justice.
Bahkan sistem yang bagus pun kadang gagal memberikan rasa keadilan.
But a bad system can never deliver justice.
Tapi sistem yang buruk atau yang jelek tidak akan mungkin memberikan keadilan.
Then one very dangerous thing happens.
Dan sesuatu yang berbahaya terjadi.
People living under that bad system lose their expectations of a proper justice.
Jadi orang-orang yang hidup dalam sistem tersebut kehilangan harapan untuk akses keadilan.
When people don't have an expectations of justice, they adjust to anything.
Ya, ketika orang-orang tidak punya harapan lagi atas peradilan atau keadilan, maka dia hanya melakukan apapun.
So the idea is, let us get whatever.
Ya, dia akan mendapatkan apapun.
Now, so the institution and the mentality are linked.
Jadi institusi dan mental itu terkait, saling terkait.
Bad institutions create lowering of expectations.
Jadi sistem yang buruk itu akan menciptakan lowering expectation ya.
Lowering expectations of
Jadi
justice.
ekspektasi atas peradilan yang rendah atau harapan atas rasa keadilan yang rendah.
So then what you get is a very deep crisis which necessarily produce impunity.
Jadi yang akan Anda temui adalah impunitas yang makin melanggeng atau krisis atas langgengnya impunitas atau kekebalan hukum terhadap mereka para Yes,
practically what it means is this, that is, it is not enough to demand justice, but you have to see whether the institutions from which you demand justice is capable of delivering justice.
Jadi ini nggak cukup hanya menuntut keadilan, tapi juga harus melihat apakah institusi yang memberikan rasa keadilan itu capable atau mampu nggak.
See, all clever dictators, first thing they do is to attack the judicial system.
Jadi untuk diktator itu ya hal yang pertama yang dilakukan adalah menyerang sistem peradilan.
Even if the dictators go, they are defeated in some time, but the damage they did to the system of justice remain.
Meskipun si diktator itu telah pergi, tapi warisan atas kerusakan sistem peradilan itu tetap ada.
Unless we deliberately, human rights people, deliberately study the system and point out these things have to change and create public discussion to achieve that, then we will be going round circles, but we will not achieve much.
Ya, kecuali kita orang-orang yang memahami HAM atau aktivis HAM ini mempelajari hal yang buruk tersebut dan mendiskusikan sistem yang rusak tersebut untuk perbaikan atau mencapai perbaikan yang lebih baik.
So this is what happened to several human rights organizations of very dedicated, very good people working for many years, doing huge amount of sacrifice and work. But they were going round the circle.
Ini terjadi pada banyak organisasi HAM, ya, organisasi hak asasi manusia yang besar, tapi mereka bekerja dan hanya berkutat di situ-situ aja, tidak banyak menciptakan kemajuan.
If you want to break the circle, you have to begin to concentrate on trying to understand what is wrong with the system, where are the defects, and creating a public debate within your own country and outside of how to get changes into that system.
Jadi ketika kita ingin keluar dari sistem itu, kita harus bisa mengidentifikasi di mana rusaknya. Ciptakan banyak diskusi, sehingga kita bisa memperbaiki sistem tersebut dan mengajak orang-orang di luar untuk terlibat memperbaiki sistem tersebut.
Like in everything, this will consist of three time scale. This will consist of 3 stages. One is whatever small change we can get now. Second is a medium stage where we try to achieve something more than more substantial. And then there is a long term where we try to transform the system to the standards that is required.
Jadi kita bisa membagi setidaknya ke dalam 3 tahapan ya, tahapan kecil, tahapan yang menengah atau jangka menengah, dan tahapan jangka panjang yang kita bisa gunakan untuk memperbaiki sistem tersebut.
So if I give an example for those 3 stages, one immediate, short-term stage. If people are kept for 30 days, 3 months, without being produced before a judge, if you work to change that and to make the people to be produced as soon as possible before a judge, it's a very significant achievement, and it can be achieved in the short run.
Jadi untuk menguji program jangka pendek, kita bisa mengadvokasi penahanan di bawah KUHAP 30 hari. Kalau kita bisa mengadvokasi tersebut, maka kita akan melakukan perubahan, setidaknya perubahan kebijakan.
At the medium stage, if this issue itself begin to discuss, is our police serving our real interest? Is our judiciary really protecting us? Or are our prosecutors what they are expected to be? If you create that discussion, of course that discussion is not going to immediately achieve its result. But if you create the discussion itself, it is a medium-term goal.
Untuk medium stage atau capaian jangka menengah, kita bisa mendiskusikan tentang peran dan fungsi kepolisian, lembaga peradilan atau judiciary, kemudian penuntut umum. Ya, walaupun kita tidak akan mungkin bisa melakukan perubahan dengan cepat, tapi setidaknya diskusi akan berkontribusi pada perubahan jangka menengah.
Finally, if in the long run, with the people joining, if you achieve a better systems, that's a long term. How long it is depends on how far your movements and the people's willingness to take these matters seriously.
Jadi capaian jangka panjang yang kita dapatkan ini tergantung pada seberapa besar usaha dan keterlibatan orang-orang untuk memperbaiki sistem ini.
So what we have to begin is what can be achieved in the short term and learn lessons out of that and take the lessons to the people.
Jadi apa yang pelajaran kita bisa ambil adalah apa yang bisa kita capai dalam jangka pendek, achieve short term and what?
And take it to the people.
And what? Taking?
Achieve the changes.
Achieve the changes,
immediate term changes, short term changes.
Oh, jadi perubahan jangka pendek and achieve the short term changes and
learn out of that. In that process, learn what the problem is.
Dan mempelajari. Jadi capaian jangka pendek dan kita bisa belajar dengan cepat dari apa yang kita capai tersebut.
And teach the lessons you learn to the people.
Dan sampaikan pelajaran yang kita dapat ini kepada orang-orang khalayak yang lebih luas.
So I'm trying to put in a very short way, in a very short time, the gist of the goal number 16 of the UN Sustainable Goals.
Jadi saya akan mendiskusikan tujuan pembangunan berkelanjutan nomor 16 atau UN Sustainable Development Goals.
This is something that needs a very long discussions. Now, for example, we finished a series of discussions in Sri Lanka. 2-hour meetings to discuss the same thing.
Jadi ini perlu diskusi yang cukup panjang seperti di Sri Lanka, perlu 3 sampai 3 and 3 meeting.
2 hour meeting 3 times.
Oh, 2 hour, 2 jam, 3 times.
3 meetings.
2
3
jam.
meetings each lasting for 2 hours.
Oh, jadi kami untuk mendiskusikan SDGs nomor 16 ini di Sri Lanka memerlukan 3 kali meeting masing-masing 2 jam.
But it is worth it. This kind of effort is worth it.
Oh, jadi tapi ini sangat bermanfaat atau ya usaha ini sangat bermanfaat.
Good thing about it is that it is possible to do that kind of discussions because of these technological changes with as many people as possible without having to spend a lot of money for organizing meetings and things like that.
Ya, bagusnya kita punya teknologi yang bisa digunakan untuk berdiskusi dan melibatkan banyak orang tanpa harus mengeluarkan banyak uang untuk mengumpulkan orang-orang.
I hope that this will be a beginning, that you will, go forward in this very important task, which can make a difference to you as well as to your people.
Jadi paling nggak ini bisa menjadi awal yang. Sorry, can you repeat the last?
That I wish that you go on with this work consistently, because it is worth it and it will bring results for you as well as for your people in Indonesia.
Ya, jadi saya berharap agar Anda melakukan pekerjaannya dengan konsisten, karena ini akan membawa manfaat untuk kita dan orang-orang atau orang-orang di Indonesia.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Basil, for the presentation. And if you don't mind, you could still join with us.
I'll be here.
Okay. So I would like to invite the second speaker, who is Mr. Bejo Untung. He already joined with us, and I hope that Mr. Bejo Untung also listen the presentation from Mr. Basil. So Mr. Bejo Untung is the survivor of past human rights abuses. He is one of the 1965 victims who still alive, and he consistently organized Thursday demonstration, Black Thursday demonstration against impunity in front of the presidential palace. And he this year got award from My 18 Foundation, My 18 award, which is given I think the end of 2019, I think October or November. So hello, Mr. Bejo.
So we have both won the same award.
Yes. Halo Pak Bejo. Halo. Halo Pak. Bisa mendengar suara saya Pak Bejo?
Pak Bejo gitu.
Halo Pak. I think he don't know how to unmute the microphone maybe.
Okay. Is it okay?
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Oh,
Would you like to speak in Bahasa or English? Up to you.
Just I try to speak in English.
Okay, please. So maybe I will not translate all the words, but maybe the substance of the sentence only. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, please, Mr. Bejo. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Chris Biantoro, for the time given to me to speak in front of the community of the Asian regions, especially Mr. Basil. How are you?
Basil Fernando, yeah.
Fine,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes, I think I have ever met you in Gwangju and in the discussion, yeah. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to focus on the situations and the human rights conditions in my country.
Saya akan fokus pada situasi HAM di negara saya.
Yes, the struggle for justice, freedom, and also the conditions of the victims of the 1965 in my country.
Jadi tentang perjuangan, kondisi korban, khususnya korban 1965.
If I study the law in Indonesia, looks like very, very good. But practically, it doesn't work anymore.
Jadi kalau saya belajar hukum di Indonesia, seolah-olah ini sangat bagus, tapi tidak bekerja dengan optimal.
So frankly, I'm very disappointed by our governments because until this very moment, it looks like just a walk on the plate without progress anymore.
Jadi saya kecewa sejujurnya kepada pemerintah karena tidak ada kemajuan, seolah-olah seperti berjalan di tempat.
Now I would like to give you an example. We have what's so called the Constitutional Law number 39 in the year of 1999. This is the law about human rights.
Ya, kita punya Undang-Undang HAM nomor 39 tahun 99.
So in this law, that the government would like to protect, the people, to protect the victims.
Oh God.
But really, it doesn't work anymore.
Ya, dalam undang-undang tersebut pemerintah punya kewajiban untuk melindungi. Nah, tapi hal ini tidak berjalan.
Again, the Constitutional Law number 26, year 2000, there will be what's so called human right court to judge the perpetrators, but it is also not working.
Kita juga punya Undang-Undang nomor 26 tahun 2000 tentang pengadilan HAM untuk mengadili pelaku pelanggar HAM, tapi ini juga tidak bekerja dengan baik.
Now, another constitutional law, what's so called the Victims and Witnesses Protection Institution Law, number 13, 2006. And it is amended number 31, the year 2014.
Ya. Jadi kita punya undang-undang, ya. Kita punya undang-undang LPSK nomor 13 tahun 2006 yang kemudian diamandemen menjadi undang-undang nomor 31 tahun 2014 tentang perlindungan saksi dan korban. Namun ini juga tidak bekerja dengan optimal.
Now, for example, according to this law, all the victims of the gross violence of human rights got what so-called medical treatment and psychosocial care. But it is only temporary, while I'm the victims, until now still the victims, but only got 6 months and then lengthen 6 months, second fine, and then 6 months again. But this is also not all the victims get this opportunity.
Jadi menurut Undang-Undang LPSK itu kita harusnya mendapatkan bantuan kesehatan dan psikososial, tapi kita hanya mendapatkan bantuan tersebut selama 6 bulan, dan itu sifatnya hanya sementara.
And again, according to this law, the victim will get what so-called compensations, reparation, and so on and so on. But it also doesn't work because the law, the victim will get the what so-called compensation if there is the final decisions from the judge. And until now, there is no human rights court, especially for the 1965 case.
Jadi para korban ini akan mendapatkan kompensasi, restitusi, dan rehabilitasi menurut undang-undang ini Undang-Undang Peradilan HAM. Namun itu tergantung pada peradilan, putusan final peradilan yang mengadili para pelaku. Tapi sampai saat ini tidak ada itu pengadilan HAM khususnya untuk para korban peristiwa 65.
So the key, the key word is actually the government should develop what so-called human right court. That is clearly stated by the law, law number 29, year 2000. So please, the government should develop this kind of court. Otherwise, it's just nonsense.
Jadi kata kuncinya adalah pemerintah seharusnya segera membentuk pengadilan HAM berdasarkan Undang-Undang 26 tahun 2000. Jika hal tersebut tidak dibentuk, maka ini hanya omong kosong.
Yeah, this is the main point that I, together with all the victims in front of the state police, every time, yeah, urge that the government should develop this. Yeah, so please, this is very important. Otherwise, what's so-called the plan for the let us say sustainable development
Goals
will not work anymore.
Jadi ini yang saya perjuangkan dengan para korban setiap hari Kamis di depan istana ya di State Palace. Itu memperjuangkan ini. Kalau ini tidak bisa dikabulkan oleh pemerintah, maka tujuan pembangunan berkelanjutan itu ya tidak berguna, tidak berfungsi.
Now, a little bit, I would like to back to the period when the ministry of Mr. Luhut Panjaitan. Yeah, it looks like already will get a little bit a small light that the case of the 1965 will be done, yeah, even though a little bit. For example, like this, Mr. Luhut Panjaitan at the time make a reference to me that please show me up about the mass grave in Indonesia. If there is a mass grave, I would like to apologize. I would ask a pardon for the victims. But after YPKP make a research and found there are 356 mass grave, the government denied.
Jadi pada waktu itu Pak Luhut, Menteri Koordinator pada waktu itu pernah meminta kepada saya data-data kuburan massal ya. Dan ketika YPKP, organisasi saya melakukan penelitian, ditemukan sebanyak 356 kuburan massal ya Pak Bejaya.
Yes.
Dan itu sampai sekarang tidak ada respon ya.
Yes. And also, when in the period of Mr. Luhut Panjaitan, we have what you call the symposiums about the history of 1965 case, yeah, and looks like that it is supported by Ministry of Human Rights and Law, supported by also the Presidency Advisory Council, and then also Human Rights Commissions, etc., etc. And this kind of symposium actually will give a slight hope that there will be the time or opportunity to solve the problem of the 1965 case. But finally, the right wing, yeah, let us say, the right wing and an intolerant group protest and refuse about this plan for the government. And until now, there is no result anymore.
Jadi pada waktu pada masa Pak Luhut itu kita pernah membuat simposium untuk peristiwa 65. Hal tersebut didukung oleh Watim Pres, kemudian Komnas HAM dan beberapa institusi negara lainnya. Namun simposium tersebut kemudian ditentang atau diprotes oleh kelompok kanan yang cenderung intoleran, dan akhirnya simposium tersebut yang tadinya membawa harapan kemudian tidak jelas.
And then, unfortunately, Mr. Luhut also was replaced by Mr. Wiranto, and that is very, very bad. I can say this is a setback. Yeah, Mr. Wiranto just also promote the what so called the national reconciliations without truth opening up. So I think it is impossible. So all the victims at the time refused the plan of Mr. Wiranto to develop what so called national reconciliations without truth.
Jadi pada saat itu ketika Pak Luhut berakhir dan digantikan oleh Pak Wiranto, situasinya justru mundur ke belakang. Pak Wiranto justru lebih merujuk pada pembentukan komisi rekonsiliasi tanpa pengungkapan kebenaran dan tanpa kepastian adanya keadilan.
Then, now the period of Mr. Mahfud MD, I heard the government would like to launch what so called the decree from the presidents about the Truth and Reconciliations law. This is also still the discourse without exact, yeah, without persistence program. So until now, I haven't ever heard any more about the plan to discuss in the assembly. That is why until now also I think the plan from the government still a big question.
Jadi ketika Pak Wiranto kemudian digantikan oleh Pak Mahfud MD, sempat ada wacana atau diskurs tentang regulasi untuk Komisi Kebenaran dan Rekonsiliasi, namun kemudian sampai saat ini tidak ada kejelasan dan hal ini akhirnya masih menimbulkan pertanyaan besar.
So, as a matter of fact, that is let the people knows that especially for me and for the 1965 case, we still have what you call persecutions and always monitored by the military. Now, for example, the last minutes I got the program in Pati. You see that on the 17th August 2020, we make the memorializations, yeah, to scatter the flowers on the mass grave, and then the military also monitor, and he called, yeah, the committee in Pati, let us say, why you do it like that? I mean that we always been persecuted. That is, I feel not independence anymore.
Jadi untuk para korban 65 kami ini masih mengalami persekusi dan pengawasan. Belum lama ini kami menyelenggarakan acara di Pati untuk tabur bunga di kuburan massal, dan kami mendapatkan pengawasan serta persekusi dari tentara. Mereka menanyakan aktivitas kami, kenapa kami melakukan hal tersebut, sehingga ini menimbulkan kecurigaan.
So the important ones, I think, if the government seriously would like to solve the case of the gross violence human rights of 1965, so this kind of attitudes that the victim should be stopped, yeah, and let us say the government should give instructions that we are all, yeah, we are the same citizenship, the same people in Indonesia, so there is no discriminations anymore.
Jadi kalau memang pemerintah punya komitmen untuk menyelesaikan kasus-kasus pelanggaran HAM ini, harusnya persekusi-persekusi ini harus dihentikan dan harus dipastikan bahwa kita semua adalah warga negara yang memiliki hak yang sama.
Yeah, so this is very important. That is why I can say, yeah, all the idea of the government should be implemented according to the law. Yeah. Until now, I struggle together with the victims of, let us say, from Trisakti, Semanggi, Munir, and so on. This is all until now, there is no progress. That is why the most important ones, yeah, let's the government develop the human right court.
Jadi ide-ide pemerintah atau kebijakan pemerintah itu seharusnya mengacu pada hukum. Oleh karenanya, mari kita sama-sama dorong agar pemerintah ini sesegera mungkin membentuk peradilan atau pengadilan hak asasi manusia.
And as all the NGOs statement before this, yeah, we urge to the governments, yeah, to launch what so-called the commissions or the committee of the truth and reconciliations, yeah, but should develop also the human right court. Otherwise, it will make impunity.
Jadi banyak NGO atau LSM yang sejauh ini menyuarakan agar pemerintah segera membentuk Komisi Kebenaran dan Rekonsiliasi, tapi juga harus bersamaan dengan pembentukan peradilan HAM, karena kalau tidak dilakukan keduanya hanya akan melanggengkan impunitas.
And as a matter of fact also, that in cycle of the President Jokowi, there are still so many general that has a link with the new order regime. So I think that is not fair. Yeah, if Mr. Jokowi persistently would like to enlighten the human right, all the people that has a link with the new order regime, the authoritarianism and dictatorship should be banned, yeah, and should develop the government that is clearly according to the missions of the reformations in the 1998.
Jadi saya melihat di sekitar Pak Jokowi ini masih banyak petinggi-petinggi atau mantan petinggi militer yang punya hubungan dengan masa lalu Orde Baru. Kalau Pak Jokowi mau konsisten melindungi hak asasi manusia, harusnya orang-orang tersebut disingkirkan dari lingkarannya. Terakhir saja Pak.
Yes, Mr. Jokowi should be consistent with the mandates of the reformations, because according to the mandate, all the regimes of the new order should be banned from the government.
Jadi Pak Jokowi ya harusnya konsisten dengan mandat reformasi tahun 1998, karena mandat reformasi itu para mantan petinggi militer yang ada kaitannya dengan Orde Baru harus tidak dilibatkan dalam pemerintahan atau dilarang.
And again, please, we would like to get support from the activists of the human rights everywhere in the world, especially in Asia. At least the mass grave in Indonesia should be protected, and if it is possible, to make what you call memorial park. And in the long term, we will have to make a forensic investigations, and then to make all the frames of the victims should be placed in a correct situations.
Jadi saya berharap dukungan dari aktivis-aktivis HAM khususnya di Asia. Saya berharap agar kuburan massal tersebut dilindungi, dibuatkan memorialisasi atau untuk mengenang peristiwa tersebut.
Yeah, because the place, the locations of the mass killing, this is scattered everywhere in every regency city, from North Sumatra, West Sumatra, South Sumatra, Java, all there are so many. So please, yeah, if Mr. Jokowi really would like to open up the truth, it must be done.
Jadi kuburan massal itu terbentang di banyak wilayah ya, di Sumatera, di Jawa, di Sumatera Utara. Jadi kalau Pak Jokowi itu memang punya komitmen untuk menyelesaikan kasus pelanggaran HAM, ya harusnya ini diselesaikan.
Okay, I think the last I would like to give a short sentence that we are the victims of the 1965 tragedy until now already 55 years waiting for the truth. And if the government still do not want to resolve the problem, I think the Indonesian government, we can say the nations that is also genocide, yeah, involved with the genocide. So all the people in the world should protest about that.
Jadi saya di akhir ini presentasi saya akan menyampaikan bahwa kami korban 65 ini sudah 55 tahun berjuang, memperjuangkan kasus kami, dan kalau pemerintah tidak memberikan kesungguhan, maka ini genosida ini terakhir mendapatkan perhatian internasional.
Indonesia is part of the genocide country.
Oke, jadi Indonesia bisa menjadi bagian dari kejahatan genosida.
Yes, and this is very important. While the victim now still alive, now the condition is in the sickness conditions, in the very difficult economic conditions, and so many victims has already died. So in this moment, I ask, the government should solve this problem. Thank you very much.
Terima kasih Pak Bejo. Jadi terakhir saya ingin menyampaikan bahwa korban masih hidup, tapi dalam kondisi yang tidak kurang sehat, sakit, miskin, dan juga banyak yang meninggal. Untuk itu saya mempertanyakan kesungguhan dari pemerintah untuk menyelesaikan kasus ini. Terima kasih. Thank you very much, Mr. Bejo Untung. Kita sudah mendengar, we have heard two presentation, one from Mr. Basil and another one from Mr. Bejo Untung. Is there any question or clarification from the participant? Ada pertanyaan nggak? Ada klarifikasi nggak? Nggak apa-apa. Dalam bahasa Indonesia nggak apa-apa. Halo? Pak Gugus. Silakan Pak. Pak Gugus atau... Ya Pak Gugus. Bisa dibuka mic-nya, Pak.
Halo.
Ya, silakan Pak. English boleh, bahasa boleh.
Nice to meet you, Mr. Basil and
Hello,
Mr. Bejo.
Yes, thank you.
Hello, hello. I think that we had a big homework, and because we had to have a different perception about the human rights. Yes, and in this region, human rights issues not popular. I think the economic issue, stability issue, much interesting in these regions. We must struggling to socialization about the human rights values, because we have the have the different perception about human rights, and then the get the negative impact for implementation of the human rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Gugus. So, Mr. Basil, would you like to respond the point from one of the participants, Mr. Gugus?
Yeah, shortly. See the that interest in economic development and the social development. We must be able to show that the human rights development and these are connected. Wherever
Jadi kita harus bisa menyampaikan bahwa pembangunan ekonomi atau pembangunan itu terkait, it is connected ya, Mr. Basil ya?
Yeah.
Terkait dengan connected to human rights, is it?
Yeah, you know, without a properly functioning legal system that protect human rights, it's not possible to have a very big economic progress.
Jadi tanpa sistem peradilan yang bagus, yang kuat, ya nggak mungkin kita punya progres atau perkembangan ekonomi yang baik.
This was proved by Suharto.
Hal ini dibuktikan oleh Soeharto.
Suharto's time, main slogan was that Indonesia will become one of the tigers.
Pada saat itu slogannya Indonesia akan menjadi salah satu macan.
And everybody in the developed countries, the economists believe that Indonesia is a miracle, and it is everybody is you know, becoming better, and economy is successful.
Jadi banyak orang di developed country atau di negara maju percaya Indonesia itu successful atau sukses dan punya keajaiban lah, miracle.
But afterwards, we find that the people in Indonesia are still very poor. Many of the developments have not taken place, and that at the same time, the legal system of Indonesia is very primitive.
Jadi ternyata kita menemukan fakta bahwa masih banyak orang Indonesia yang miskin, ya, dan sistem peradilannya masih primitif, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, primitive.
It's worse than even some of the less developed countries. The legal system.
Bahkan sistem peradilannya tidak lebih baik dari beberapa negara yang kurang maju atau kurang berkembang atau less developed.
So instead of our saying, you know, we are standing for human rights and they are standing for economic development, we should say they are also not really fighting for economic development, because two cannot be separated.
Jadi kedua hal tersebut, ekonomi, pembangunan, dan hak asasi manusia itu tidak bisa dipisahkan.
So it's a false propaganda that they are involved in economic development is a false propaganda.
Jadi kalau itu adalah propaganda yang palsu. Kalau false economic development, sorry,
It's a false propaganda.
ya propaganda yang palsu.
So we must say that in order to develop economically, you must strengthen your legal systems which is capable of protecting human rights.
Jadi untuk mencapai pembangunan yang baik ya kita harus membuat sistem peradilan ini bekerja dengan baik.
Connection we have to build is bad legal system can never do away with impunity.
Jadi bad legal system atau sistem peradilan yang buruk itu tidak akan mungkin mengakhiri impunitas.
If you demand justice for past crimes from the government, but you do not make a critique of why the judiciary fails. It's a function of the judiciary to provide, first of all, for crimes. Why has it failed? So unless you combine that, you will always go to the politicians to demand it, and the politician will do it for political reasons. They will not give in.
Jadi ketika kita menuntut penyelesaian kasus pelanggaran past crimes,
regarding past crimes,
ya pelanggaran HAM masa lalu, it goes to politicians.
If you go only to politicians, to the government, there is something wrong with that, because primary function of providing justice should be the courts.
Jadi kalau kita hanya meminta pada politisi atau pemerintah itu ya kurang pas atau salah. Kita harus minta pada sistem peradilan.
Why have the judges not, come forward to say mass graves are mass murders? It is pure and simple murder in a large scale. So each individual of those people have been murdered. And it is the task of the judiciary to provide justice. So we should not let the judiciary not to face the consequences. While demanding from government, we should also demand from the judiciary, what are you doing? What kind of system is this?
Jadi kita tidak hanya meminta pada pemerintah ya, khususnya untuk kuburan massal tadi atau mass grave tadi, tapi kita juga harus meminta keadilan ini seharusnya pada peradilan atau pada hakim atau judges. Ada lagi? In this forum we also have Ibu Dolorosa ya. Halo, Ibu Dolorosa.
Hai Chris.
Halo, apa kabar?
Hai. Wow.
Sorry, saya baru baca tadi. Oh, ternyata ada senior saya di sini. Boleh diberikan mungkin patah dua patah.
Boleh.
Respon. English boleh.
No. Kalau terjemahkan saja. Saya mau berbahasa Indonesia.
Oke.
Saya senang jumpa Pak Basil, juga Pak Untung. Terima kasih atas remarks-nya. Pertanyaan saya kepada Pak Basil adalah begini. Saya senang dia sebagai representatif Asian Human Rights Commission. Yang saya ingin tanya adalah 40 tahun dia bekerja di situ. Saya ingin contoh bentuk-bentuk seperti apa involvement yang dia sudah kerjakan di semua kejahatan-kejahatan negara yang terjadi di Asia, supaya kita mengerti bagaimana solidaritas terhadap human rights ini bisa kita dirikan di negara Asia.
Oke. Okay, Mr. Basil. There is one question from Miss Dolorosa. First of all, she said that she glad to meet you and Mr. Bejo Untung in this discussion, and thank you for the remark. And she has a question that, according to your presentation, you said that you have 40 years experience working on the human rights field, and she asks, would you like to give example of your involvement in the human rights in Asia, so that we can learn from your experience during 40 years. We can also learn and use your experience to develop solidarity among the human rights activists in Asia.
Yeah, of course, that's a very long, thing to state, because it will take a long time, because I have worked in Sri Lanka, I have worked in Cambodia, I have worked almost in every other country from the Asian Human Rights Commission, Philippines, what is this,
Including
Bangladesh,
Indonesia,
Indonesia, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Nepal. All these countries we have worked, about 11 countries around.
Yeah.
So the main problem that I see is that we are still the old that first generation of human rights.
Oke. So pengalaman saya cukup panjang ya. Saya bekerja di kurang lebih 11 negara, ada Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, Filipina, Kamboja, dan sebagainya, kurang lebih 11 negara. Dan problem utama yang saya lihat, kita ini adalah generasi pertama dari hak asasi manusia. The first generation of human rights ya.
Yeah, that is, we learn from the West and we make the demands that way, but we have not tried to understand our own countries and to articulate the problems of our own countries, and thereby to contribute to a change.
Because jadi kita ini belajar dari Barat dan tidak cukup mempelajari nilai-nilai dari konteks lokal kita, atau mengartikulasikan ulang nilai-nilai tersebut ke dalam perjuangan atau aktivitas kita.
What happened in each of these countries is very unique. Say, take Cambodia. Entirety of the educated class and the courts and system was completely destroyed. You take Myanmar. From 1962, the whole system was destroyed. Then you take your own country. From the time of the military takeover, for many decades, whatever the system you had was destroyed. Now, that kind of thing has not happened in England or United States or France or any of these countries.
Oke.
So
jadi salah satu pengalaman contoh misalkan di Kamboja yang saya alami, sistemnya rusak parah. Kemudian di Myanmar sejak 1962 juga mengalami kerusakan yang cukup parah sistemnya. Kemudian di Indonesia. Nah, hal-hal tersebut tidak terjadi di negara-negara maju, contohnya di Inggris misalkan.
So each of our countries, we have to show these are the problems that we are trying to solve. We cannot solve only one problem. For example, in Myanmar, it is not enough to have a democratic change and appoint Aung San Suu Kyi. That did not change anything very much.
Ya, kita tidak bisa menyelesaikan masalah. Kita harus bisa menunjukkan masalah tersebut ya. Kita tidak bisa menyelesaikan masalah kita masing-masing. Contoh misalkan di Myanmar, dengan pengangkatan Aung San Suu Kyi itu ternyata juga tidak menyelesaikan atau tidak membuat perubahan apapun.
The same with your, your neighbors. If you take Philippines, Marcos was overthrown by a popular uprising, people's power. But the system that the destruction of the system Marcos did continue. And now you get a president who openly allows extrajudicial killings. Now it has gone to thousands, and there is nothing that can be done.
Contohnya
So,
Filipina ya, di era
Philippines.
Marcos contohnya di Filipina di era Marcos meskipun dia berhasil diturunkan oleh para aktivis, tapi warisannya masih berlanjut sampai hari ini. Presiden pengganti Duterte justru mempraktekkan extrajudicial killing atau pembunuhan di luar prosedur hukum.
When Suharto killed so many of your people, I know this from 1965 itself, because around around that time, I have visited as a young man. I have visited Indonesia, and I know this whole story from that time. See, when he killed so many, he did not kill only people. He killed the system, particularly the system of justice. So we need justice not only for the people who are killed, but also justice for the system. We must revitalize. We must recreate a system that is capable of delivering justice.
Ya, ketika masa muda saya pernah mengunjungi Indonesia dan saya melihat Soeharto membunuh banyak orang pada saat itu. Dan tidak hanya orang yang dibunuh, tapi juga sistem, khususnya sistem peradilan. Oleh karenanya kita harus membangun ulang atau membuat ulang agar sistem ini lebih baik.
I'm sorry, the question that you ask is a very long one. Maybe someday we will find a opportunity to discuss that for 2 hours. I'm quite willing, but in a short time I can't say anything more.
Chris, aku sambung sedikit ya.
Silakan, Bu.
Mr. Basil.
Yes.
I know you are very important institution, but I believe we need to think of how would you think of a kind of endorsement in Asian countries that we can live together and we have a good what you might call it, like the law that the Asian country would develop a well-being in every country, that as a very important institution, Asian Human Rights Commission, we should be able to have a kind of a not law, but what should I call it? I cannot find it in English.
Best practices?
Not perspective, not only perspective, but
best practice.
Growing together as Asian countries to have a good solidarity that we can slowly lift up to the best of well-being in Asia, especially confronting the crime state. State crime.
State crime.
Yeah. Do you have an idea?
Yeah, you see, our aim in the HRC is to work towards that. That is our main focus, is to work on the basic changes that will make systems better and hold the state responsible and to enhance the well-being, as you say.
Jadi tujuan kita di AHRC itu sebenarnya ingin melakukan perubahan mendasar, membuat negara bertanggung jawab, seperti yang Anda katakan tadi.
I hope we will have more occasions to talk about these things and to develop the kind of solidarity that you are talking about.
Thank you,
Jadi
Mr.
saya berharap kita punya kesempatan lain lagi untuk mendiskusikan hal ini.
Once again, pertanyaan.
Ya, please, Mr. Gugus.
Yes. For Mr. Basil, hello.
Hello.
Hello. What the kinds of good role models between the economic development which low human rights implementation? Thank you.
Yeah. See, in the world there are many examples, but in Asia, one good example is South Korea. South Korea has had a very bad.
Thank you.
South Korea has had a very bad military history. It has also had a very bad colonial history with the Japanese occupying for a long time and virtually destroying the country. But
so
the people.
So what do you think about?
Yes, please.
Can you?
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what do you think about our policy, our government's policy? Will match the good policy about human rights law, implementation human rights law?
Well, you know, judging by the way the system works, I cannot see anything that I could say is good.
Okay.
It's better than there's some beginning, but the basic questions have not been answered.
Okay, Mr. Basil, I will translate first for maybe only in the substance ya.
Yeah.
Jadi tadi Pak Gugus bertanya tentang contoh ya di negara Asia, model yang bisa dijadikan rujukan. Pak Basil mengatakan Korea Selatan, karena Korea Selatan tuh dulu punya pengalaman diktator di masa lalu, tapi sekarang berhasil melakukan pemajuan HAM dan juga pembangunan ekonomi. Dan ini yang seharusnya juga menjadi salah satu model contoh bagi pemerintah Indonesia gitu. Saya menjelaskan intinya aja. Ya, please.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chris Biantoro, I would like to answer Mr. Agus' questions.
Yes, please.
Okay, Mr. Agus Rais, I would like to add like this. You just say the human rights implementation is not so interesting for the Indonesian government.
Yes.
This is the thing that actually Indonesian government would like to escape, the responsibility of the human rights gross balance in the past. They just only focus on the economy, but really they would like to escape. Please translate, Mr. Chris.
Thank you. Jadi pemerintah Indonesia itu apa namanya? Tadi Pak Bejo mengatakan
the responsibility.
akan menghindar atau melarikan diri dari tanggung jawab untuk menyelesaikan persoalan-persoalan ini.
You remember that Indonesia, the principles in making the country has what's called the 5 principles. First, religion, belief in God, and then humanity. You see, you should remember, and then also democracy, and then also social justice, and then unity for nationalism. So I think this is very important. I cannot work without our problem, the case of the human rights already solved. Now, just simple thing. I cannot sleep, I cannot work because my parents were killed in 1965. I have to find, where are they? Where are they?
Follow the set.
Oke, terima kasih Pak Bejo. Jadi cukup tadi disampaikan Pak Bejo tentang prinsipal dari Pancasila, dari ketuhanan sampai keadilan sosial. Dan apa yang ditekankan oleh Pak Bejo adalah semua itu tidak bisa berfungsi maksimal. Kita tidak bisa bekerja, tidak bisa tidur kalau persoalan mendasar yaitu penyelesaian kasus pelanggaran HAM, perlindungan HAM tidak diselesaikan oleh pemerintah. Itu
Yes,
poinnya.
so I would like to stress the standpoint of Mr. Basil. I quite agree that in developing our country, we should not only talk about economy, but also talk about human rights, law, etc., etc. Thank you, Mr.
Jadi
Basil.
saya sangat setuju dengan Pak Basil ya, atau Mr. Basil, bahwa kita tidak hanya bicara tentang pembangunan ekonomi, tapi juga tentang pemajuan HAM, perlindungan hukum, dan lain sebagainya tadi. Okay, 1.5 hour already. Anything else? We also have a friend from Surabaya, Mr. Juir. Would you like to say something? Mau sampaikan sesuatu? Or Mr. Andi Irfan? We have a friend from Surabaya, from the Federation of the Commission for Disappearances of Victims of Violence. Pak Andi, mau sampaikan sesuatu? Halo Pak Andi.
Halo Pak Kris.
Halo. Okay. So, Mr. Basil, we have a human rights lawyer from East Java Province.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks, Mr. Basil. Saya mau bicara bahasa Indonesia saja ya.
Okay, I would like to speak in bahasa, Mr. Basil.
Tadi saya sekilas agak putus-putus di meeting ini. Tapi sekilas tadi saya mau mempertajam pertanyaannya Mbak Rosa tentang apa sebenarnya yang bisa menjadi contoh bagi kita di Indonesia untuk mendorong kemajuan hak asasi manusia. Saya kira eksperimen di Indonesia selama 20 tahun kita semua bisa ambil kesimpulan bahwa kita ini dalam situasi stagnasi. Kira-kira terobosan apa yang bisa membongkar kebuntuan ini? Harapan besar tentang kemajuan HAM di era Jokowi ini kan makin lama makin nggak ada gitu. Dulu kita pernah berharap di periode pertama Jokowi, tapi saya kira harapan itu makin menghilang. Cerita Pak Bejo itu kan menggambarkan itu. Juga kawan-kawan kita di Papua yang paling terkini, situasi di Papua yang makin memburuk. Nah, saya ingin lebih ke arah itu, terobosan atau adakah sesuatu yang secara krusial bisa kita dorong di momen yang sekarang. Itu Pak Kris.
Thank you very much, Pak Andi, Mr. Basil, and Mr. Bejo Untung. There is one point from Andi Irfan, a human rights lawyer from East Java Province. He said that he would like to make a stressing from the point of Ms. Dolorosa, when she said that she asked the example that can be used or can be learned by Indonesia, because now our situation is stagnant or stagnation. We experience stagnation. We need breakthrough, because under Jokowi, President Joko Widodo, we have expectation, but now the situation is worsening. For example, in Papua, the situation is getting worse now. Democracy is under serious control. So we need to learn other experience or breakthrough from other country. If you have, you can share with us here. Thank you.
See, you have examples from many countries, but I will say the most positive example is in South Korea. I think you should study more about how they achieved, and mainly by the intervention of people, how they strengthened their democracy, and they were able even to put their own president in jail.
Jadi kita bisa belajar dari pengalaman Korea ya, bagaimana masyarakat sipil itu bisa menekan pemerintah dan bahkan menaruh dia di dalam jail, penjara.
As you know, the former president was charged for corruption, and she has been jailed for a long time. So that shows the strength of the system. But it was achieved through very hard work of the people on people's movement.
Jadi contoh mantan presiden Korea Selatan yang tersangkut korupsi bisa dipenjara itu kan karena sistem peradilannya bagus.
You had a strong people's movement. That is what defeated Suharto, and thereafter continued. But today, the people's movement must also articulate what it wants. If you want greater democracy, then you must articulate that problem and put to the people, this is what we want. So civil society must be able to give a vision to the people.
Jadi masyarakat sipil, gerakan masyarakat sipil harus bisa mengartikulasikan atau menyampaikan pesan kepada khalayak luas. It is our vision, is it?
Yeah.
The last word.
We must give a vision of the change that we want to the people.
Oh, kita harus menyampaikan perubahan yang ingin kita capai kepada masyarakat atau khalayak luas.
So when the people ask from the government what you want, they must be able to say, we want this. We want this for democratization. We want this in terms of accountability, for example, for past crimes. We want the kind of policing system which is like this. We want the kind of judiciary which is like this.
Jadi kita harus menyampaikan pesan dengan jelas, kita mau ini, kita mau sistem peradilannya seperti ini, kita mau kasus pelanggaran HAM masa lalu itu diselesaikan dengan cara seperti ini. Kita pengen polisi dengan yang bekerja seperti ini. Itu harus disampaikan secara clear kepada publik.
Civil society must have an imagination for the future.
Jadi masyarakat sipil harus punya imajinasi untuk masa depan.
They must sell that imagination to the people.
Dia harus menyampaikan imajinasinya kepada people, kepada masyarakat.
That is what happened in South Korea.
Itu yang terjadi di Korea Selatan. Okay. Mr. Bejauntung,
Mr. Chris, I would like to add the statement of Mr. Basil.
Yes.
I think as long as the Indonesian government has no seriousness and the capability, I think also this is useless. Yeah. Now, for example, I have already supported with the facts, and then administrative, let us say, the for in addressing for the judge, but also the government try to close their eyes. Yeah. So I think the key, our government should have responsibility and seriousness. Otherwise, all we have done will be faded up. Yeah. So please, the most important, we have to press the Indonesian government should obey according to the constitutional law. This one.
Jadi Pak Bejo menambahkan ya, sepanjang pemerintah tidak punya keseriusan, ini tidak akan berguna. Jadi kita harus menekan atau memberikan tekanan kepada pemerintah agar obey atau patuh terhadap hukum atau peradilan.
I agree with you. And if you make that a demand coming from a large section of people of the country, government will have to listen. That's always been the case. There is a large body of people supporting what you demand. Governments will have to listen, because governments don't do things because they are good. Government do things because they are under pressure. If the people really pressurize, the more people begin to realize. So you must build your lobby from the people, from the bottom up. And that is what happened in South Korea.
Jadi kalau kita belajar dari apa yang terjadi di Korea Selatan, itu pemerintah melakukan atau mengambil kebijakan karena ada tekanan awalnya. Jadi kita harus belajar melobi, melakukan gerakan dari bawah, karena pemerintah itu akan melakukan atau mengeluarkan kebijakan itu karena adanya tekanan, bukan karena kehendak pemerintah sendiri. Itu yang harus kita bangun sama-sama untuk melakukan perubahan. Jadi kita harus bekerja dari bawah, ajak more people atau orang yang lebih banyak untuk memberikan tekanan kepada pemerintah untuk mengambil kebijakan.
I think the example we had from Argentina, I think, when there was a huge number of disappearances, then the government was not giving any justice. There was this Mothers of Demoyo. They call themselves Mothers of Demoyo. That is the mothers of people who lost their children or husbands or people from the family. They came every week to one spot for years till the nation listened to them. Their country listened to them. And the country demand from the people, from the government has to do something. So it is very essential to achieve that, to be able to bring pressure on the government by a mass movement, by people, so that they will be forced to listen.
Jadi salah satu pelajaran kita bisa ambil dari Argentina ya, ada ibu-ibu yang berdiri di De Mayo atau Plaza De Mayo every week atau setiap seminggu sekali. Mereka memberikan tekanan kepada pemerintah Argentina. Pada saat itu terjadi kasus penghilangan paksa yang dengan angka yang cukup besar, dan akhirnya pemerintah Argentina memberikan jawaban atau merespon permintaan ibu-ibu tersebut. Itu yang harus kita bangun juga di Indonesia. Oke. 1.5 hours already, Mr. Basil. I think we should end our discussion. And the conclusion of our discussion is that we have to develop strong civil society to advocate strong institution, access to justice, and also to maintain peace in line with the SDGs number 16. And I would like also to refer to some opinion from the participant like Ibu Dolorosa and also Andi Irfan, Mr. Agus as well. They expect that we should have solidarity among civil society in Asia. We should learn the achievement, either short achievement, middle achievement, and long-term achievement from other countries. So this is the first discussion. We expect that we have more occasion, Mr. Basil, to discuss with different civil society to elaborate more about the SDGs, how important of SDGs, and it should be connected to human rights and the real situation of victim of human rights violation, like for instance, Mr. Bejo Untung and his community, which is 1965 massacre. So thank you very much. I'm really sorry. I'm sorry for the other participants who don't have enough occasion to ask a question. And also, my apologies. Maybe my translation is not quite comprehensive, because I only translate the point, not the whole sentences. But I hope that the translation is quite clear. So I would like to end the meeting, Mr. Basil. So maybe you could leave the forum. Thank you very much. And we would like to. So maybe before leave, you should say something.
Yeah, I enjoyed this meeting. I'm particularly, in sympathy with the struggle of people for, demanding justice for what happened in 1965. That is something we have had for a long time. And I hope there are many others who have similar concerns. So maybe you're all internally, if we develop a greater common purpose in trying to achieve changes in the justice system and to make it a common cause on the civil society, I think changes can be brought about.
Thank you very much, Mr. Basil. And we'll see you in another occasion with the different civil society background. So we will have
Sure.
more discussion with many more groups in Indonesia.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much also, all friends, yeah, Mr.
Yeah.
Kris Biantoro and all, yeah.
Terima kasih.
Bye-bye.
Ya.
See you next time in the same.
Terima kasih Ibu Dolorosa, terima kasih Pak Bejo, terima
Sure.
kasih teman-teman mahasiswa dan semua partisipan.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.